I was kicked out of my house on Christmas Eve by my own mother, not for doing drugs, not for breaking the law, not even for anything remotely scandalous. No, my crime was daring to ask if we could open presents before my golden boy brother arrived. 5 hours late, drunk off his ass. You'd think, after 32 years of quietly swallowing their favoritism, their insults disguised as jokes, and the endless emotional labor they expected from me, I would have seen it coming. But you don't notice a knife until you feel it twist. Growing up, I was the insurance policy child, the one who filled the awkward silences at family gatherings, the one who tutored my brother through high school while he partied, the one who managed mom's hospital bills when dad bailed. You would think that earned me some sliver of loyalty. Instead, it earned me the role of emotional maid, invisible unless they needed something, disposable when I wasn't convenient. I should have realized the truth years earlier. Maybe it was the way mom's eyes lit up when Todd walked into a room, how she'd brush off my promotions with a tight smile but gush for hours about Todd's new entrepreneurial ventures, read pyramid schemes. Or maybe it was the time she threw me a sad little 28th birthday dinner with supermarket cupcakes and then turned around and hosted a catered blowout for Todd's 26th with a live band. But you tell yourself lies when you need to survive. You tell yourself you're just overreacting, that someday if you just do enough, you'll be seen. Christmas Eve broke that illusion so hard it shattered into dust. It was supposed to be simple. Todd texted he'd be a little late, so normal, and we were all sitting awkwardly in the living room. I suggested we go ahead and open gifts with Grandma, who was 87 and clearly nodding off. Mom froze. Then she turned on me with this tight, venomous smile I'd only ever seen her use on outsiders. If you can't wait for your brother like the rest of us, maybe you should just go. Silence. Dad stared at the TV. Grandma looked embarrassed but didn't speak. My cousins shifted uncomfortably. I waited for someone to laugh, to say it was a joke, but no one did. I heard myself say, in a voice that didn't sound like mine, "Fine." I stood up, grabbed my coat, walked out into the freezing night while my breath came out in little shocked bursts. Not a single person followed me. Not even my dad. Not even to say goodbye. I spent Christmas Eve eating drive-through French fries in my car, parked outside my crappy apartment, too numb to cry. The weeks after were a blur. Calls went unanswered. My mom posted a gushing Facebook album about family Christmas, with dozens of photos me noticeably absent, like I'd never existed. One of my aunts sent me a passive-aggressive text, "We missed you. Hope you didn't let your feelings get the best of you again." It wasn't just Christmas, it was everything. It was every lonely birthday, every unacknowledged achievement, every time I'd swallowed hurt so they wouldn't have to deal with it. And now they'd erased me entirely and acted like it was my fault. The final straw came 2 months later on my mother's birthday. I still don't know why I went. Masochism, maybe. Some part of me still clinging to the hope that they'd see me. I spent the whole morning baking her favorite cake, the one she used to say only I made just right. I showed up with it carefully boxed, heart hammering against my ribs. The house was packed with relatives. Balloons, flowers, laughter. I walked in and immediately felt the weight of being an afterthought. Nobody greeted me. Nobody asked about my job, my life, nothing. I set the cake down quietly and wandered into the kitchen, trying to breathe. Then I heard it. "Todd, honey, we're ready for your speech." A chorus of cheers and clapping. I peeked into the dining room. There was my brother, front and center, champagne glass in hand, basking in the attention. My mom beamed at him like he was the second coming. Someone, probably my cousin, spotted me peeking. She smiled pityingly. "You should stay in the kitchen." Todd's moment. Stay in the kitchen. Like a servant, like background noise. I stood there, heart hammering, while Todd launched into a rambling, self-congratulatory speech about how blessed he was to have such a supportive family, how he wouldn't be half the man he was today without our mom. And they all nodded and clapped, tears sparkling in their eyes, over the man who'd borrowed money from all of them, wrecked 2 marriages, and once got arrested for a bar brawl, over the golden boy. Meanwhile, I was literally hiding behind a fridge. That was the moment something inside me snapped, not loudly, not with a scream, more like a quiet, clean break. I slipped out the back door without saying a word. left the cake untouched, left them to their golden child, left my need for their approval behind like a heavy, worn-out coat. The next morning, I blocked every number, deleted every family contact, went no contact. No explanations, no drama. They didn't even notice at first. But oh, they would. They would notice in ways they could never unsee. And it would all start with a simple, quiet plan. At first, it was blissful. No texts, no guilt trips, no last-minute calls to fix Todd's disasters. Just silence. It felt like breathing clean air after years of choking on smoke. I poured myself into work. I picked up extra shifts. I repainted my apartment. I went for long drives with the windows down and music blaring. For the first time in my life, there was no one needing, demanding, draining. But of course, it didn't last. The first shot came 3 weeks later. A package showed up at my door, no note, no return address. Just a plain brown box with my mother's handwriting scrawled across the label. Inside was a stack of old family photo albums. I flipped through them mechanically, stomach churning. Every page was the same story: Todd's birthdays, Todd's graduations, Todd's vacations. In the few photos I was in, I was off to the side, blurred or facing away, a ghost at my own family's table. At the very back was a sticky note in Mom's neat cursive. "Hope you'll always remember where you came from." Translation: "Get back in line." I didn't reply. I shredded the note and shoved the albums in a closet. The second shot was more public. One night, scrolling through Facebook, I saw my mother had posted another album, Family Memories. It was full of photos from her birthday party, the one I had walked out of. I wasn't in a single one, not even the edges. It was like I had never existed. Like I was some inconvenient mistake they had finally edited out. The captions made my skin crawl. "So proud of my amazing son, Todd. Couldn't ask for a better family. Hashtag blessed, hashtag grateful." Comments flooded in. "Beautiful family. Todd is such a wonderful son." I clicked through them blankly, feeling like I was floating outside my own body. One of my cousins messaged me that night. "Hey, Aunt Linda said you couldn't handle being around family anymore. Is everything okay?" Couldn't handle. That was the narrative now. That I was fragile, overdramatic, a selfish little storm cloud ruining their perfect sunshine. I didn't respond. The next week, my aunt called, straight to voicemail. "Honey, we're all worried about you. You're being very unfair to your mother after all she's done for you. It's not healthy to hold grudges. You're not getting any younger, you know." She ended with a syrupy little barb. "Family is forever. You'll regret pushing us away when it's too late." I stared at my phone until the screen went dark. Then I blocked her number too. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad anymore. I was cold. It scared me a little, how easy it had become to not care. Meanwhile, Todd flourished on the surface. Mom bragged that he was starting a business selling drop-ship junk off Etsy. He got a new car, a new girlfriend half his age, and a shiny fake Instagram lifestyle. And somehow, even though I'd been the one paying my own rent, my own insurance, building a career with no handouts, I was the one they talked about in hushed, pitying tones. The poor thing who couldn't handle life. They tried everything to rope me back in: guilt, manipulation, even a thinly veiled threat. One afternoon, I came home from work to find a letter taped to my door. From my mother, it read, "We're willing to forgive you if you're ready to apologize and make amends. But this window won't stay open forever. Think carefully about what you're throwing away. Forgive me, like I was the one who abandoned them on Christmas Eve. Like I was the one who erased them from family memories. Like I was the one who made my own daughter feel like a ghost." That was the moment I realized something bone deep. They didn't miss me. They missed my usefulness. The family dynamic had been built like an old rickety table, balanced on my silent, invisible support. Without me, the wobbling started. Todd couldn't keep a steady job. Mom started posting cryptic prayer request statuses. Bills piled up. Rumors started trickling down through the cousins. And still, they thought they could fix it by dragging me back into the mud. They didn't understand. I wasn't angry at them anymore. I was done. Meanwhile, the first started noticing little things, hints, questions from old family friends. "So, I heard you moved away?" "I hadn't. Your mom said you're not doing well. Hope you're getting the help you need." I was thriving. It was obvious. They were rewriting the story, painting themselves as the loving victims of my ungrateful betrayal. It would have hurt once. Now, it was almost funny. Sad, funny, like a bad sitcom that didn't know when to quit. I stayed silent, let them dig their own graves with whispers and half-truths. But it wasn't just emotional anymore. There was something else, something financial simmering under the surface. A few offhand comments at a family funeral set my gut twisting. Well, now that Todd's taking over the family stuff, good thing Linda set up everything for Todd years ago, family stuff set up years ago. I didn't like the way they said it, the way they didn't say certain things. That night, lying awake in my tiny bed with the streetlights casting long, sickly shadows on the walls, a dark thought started growing. They hadn't just discarded me emotionally. They were trying to erase me financially, too. Whatever family stuff there was, property, money, savings, who knew I wasn't just excluded? I was being cut out, and they were banking on me being too broken, too hurt, too desperate for scraps to notice. They didn't realize I was more awake than I had ever been in my life. I decided right then and there to stop mourning. No more crying, no more wondering why they didn't love me enough, no more trying to earn a place at their collapsing table. It was time to burn the whole rotten foundation down, quietly, strategically, without ever raising my voice. Because the best revenge isn't loud, it's cold, precise. And it leaves the guilty wondering when the ground under their feet turned to ice. And I was just getting started. I started digging the next morning, not like some TV hacker thriller, just quiet, patient work. Emails, property records, a few polite inquiries to old family lawyers whose names I vaguely remembered from overheard conversations. Turns out when you're invisible, people forget to hide things from you. It took me less than 2 weeks to uncover the first bombshell. About 10 years ago, right after my dad's second heart scare, my parents had quietly transferred the deed to their house. Not to both children, not in a trust, directly to Todd. No future will, no divided estate. Just a clean, private handover. I guess they thought it made sense. Todd was the man of the family, after all. Never mind that I was the one paying their hospital bills when Dad's insurance fell through. Never mind that Todd was busy getting blackout drunk in a Motel 6 parking lot while I sat in the ER waiting room for 10 hours. Todd owned the house now, had for years. It made my hands shake when I first saw the document, not from sadness, from how unsurprised I felt. Of course, they gave him everything. Of course, they made sure I would have nothing. And still expected me to smile sweetly and keep handing over pieces of myself like it was my duty. It wasn't just the house, either. There was an account, a savings fund, supposedly set aside for emergencies that had been drained slowly over the last 7 years. Guess who had access? Guess who had none? Guess who was still quietly paying off some of Mom's old medical debt without a thank you card in sight? I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the printouts, the screenshots, the ugly, undeniable truth, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel sad. I felt clean, like something rotted had finally been scraped out of me. They had chosen him, over and over and over. Now they could keep him. I wasn't going to yell or beg or fight. That would only feed them. I would erase myself so thoroughly from their lives that their betrayal would echo back at them like a hollow, endless scream. And it started with a phone call. I dug up the number of my late uncle's best friend, a quiet, methodical estate lawyer named Mr. Rowland, who had always liked me because, in his words, "You're the only one who listens more than you talk." I told him everything. Not dramatically, not emotionally, just the facts. He was quiet for a long time after I finished. Then he said, almost gently, "You know they never thought you'd check. You were supposed to stay loyal, silent, and stupid." I laughed. It came out sharp and wild and free. We started working on a plan. Nothing illegal, nothing reckless. Just a series of clean, official actions to sever every remaining tie. First, I formally withdrew my financial guarantees. Mom had co-signed me into a few things over the years, subtle chains I hadn't even realized were still clamped around my ankles. Mr. Rowland helped me file the right paperwork to sever every one. I wasn't going to be their silent safety net anymore. Second, we put together a letter, short, professional. It informed them that I was relinquishing any and all claims or responsibilities toward the family property or estate. It would legally free me and very quietly expose the transfer they had tried to keep hidden. Third, I changed my will. No vague mentions of family. No sentimental catch-alls. Everything I had, the savings account I built from scratch. The modest investments, even my crappy but beloved Honda Civic, was now designated to 2 friends who had become my true family. People who had shown up when I was bleeding and broken. People who had seen me. The final step was personal, not legal. I composed one last message to my mother. Not a scream, not a sob story. Just a few short lines. I know about the house. I know about the account. I know where I stand. You made your choices. Now I'm making mine. Do not contact me again. I didn't send it right away. I let it sit in my drafts for 3 days. I wanted to make sure I wasn't acting out of rage. I wasn't. I was acting out of clarity. On the 4th morning, I hit send. It was like stepping out into crisp winter air after being locked in a windowless room for years. The silence that followed was delicious. Until it wasn't. Todd broke first. Of course he did. 2 weeks later, I got a call at work. Unknown number. I usually ignore them, but something in my gut said to pick up. It was Todd. His voice was a bizarre mixture of fake cheer and desperate urgency. Hey sis! Wow, long time no talk. Crazy stuff, huh? Listen, I was wondering, you still working at that company? You think maybe you could hook me up with a job? I almost laughed out loud. It was so absurd, so cosmic, so perfect. The golden boy who had once sneered at my boring office job, the golden boy who had accepted a house, an inheritance, and endless chances like they were his birthright. Begging for an interview. I didn't even pretend to consider it. I just said, sweet and icy as a winter storm, "Oh, sorry, Todd. We only hire people who can pass a background check." He stammered, spluttered, tried to joke. I hung up mid-sentence. No anger, no sadness. Just a click, a final nail in the coffin. Later, one of my friends joked I should have recorded the call and turned it into a ringtone. But honestly, I didn't need the trophy. Knowing he had to make that call, that he needed me, and knew I wouldn't save him was enough. They taught me my worth was measured by what I could do for them. Now they were learning the real cost of what they threw away. And the best part, I wasn't even done yet. The fallout wasn't loud, it was slow, sticky, rotting from the inside like an apple that still looked shiny on the outside. It started with the Facebook posts. Mom switched from passive-aggressive pride to full martyr mode almost overnight. Some people forget where they came from. You give, and they still leave you. Family means forgiveness, not abandonment. Cue the flood of sympathy comments. Cue the crocodile tears. I ignored every one. It was almost funny watching her paint herself as the tragic heroine, while Todd's business quietly collapsed in the background. Turns out, drop shipping cheap knockoff products doesn't exactly build an empire. Especially not when you're blowing every dollar on vape pens, gambling apps, and bottle service to impress girls half your age. By early spring, word started getting around town. People talk. Especially when the golden boy's car gets repossessed right in front of the Starbucks where he's taking meetings. Especially when your name starts popping up in county records attached to lawsuits for unpaid debts. Especially when the whispers start that maybe, just maybe, things weren't quite as perfect in paradise as Linda's Facebook albums made it seem. Then came the real blow, a lien notice posted on the family house. Public, humiliating, visible for anyone with half a brain and a Wi-Fi connection to find. Guess who hadn't been paying property taxes? Guess who had burned through the emergency fund? Guess who had no rainy day savings because they assumed the human doormat me would always be there with an umbrella? The mask cracked hard. Relatives started reaching out. Aunt Carol, who hadn't spoken to me in 5 years unless she needed a ride to the airport, sent a cheerful, "Hey stranger," text. Cousin Lacey, who once called me boring for working full-time through college, suddenly wanted to catch up. Even my dad, who had mastered the art of being physically present but emotionally vacant, left me a rambling voicemail about how families have ups and downs. I didn't respond, not to a single one. Meanwhile, Mr. Rowland and I quietly finished the final piece of the puzzle. Because here's the thing, no one ever taught Todd, owning a house isn't free, especially when you inherited it under shady conditions and treated it like a bottomless ATM. When the county came knocking for back taxes and fees, guess who they wanted to talk to? Guess whose name was on every liability? Not mine. Not anymore. Todd and Mom tried to scramble, of course. There were panicked emails, voicemails, We can fix this if we come together as a family. You need to come home. You're being so selfish." I forwarded every message straight to my lawyer. It wasn't selfish to refuse to set myself on fire to keep them warm. It was survival. The final showdown wasn't some screaming match or public spectacle. It was an envelope delivered by courier. Neat, impersonal, devastating. Inside were the formal revocation documents. A clear legal severance of any financial, property, or estate ties. No room for manipulation. No room for guilt. I was officially, legally free. I heard through the grapevine that Mom had a meltdown dramatic enough to get her temporarily banned from the local church Facebook group. Todd tried to stage a comeback, one last desperate, pathetic Hail Mary. He showed up at my office, not at the front desk like a normal person. He barged in through a side door, cornered me in the hallway. For a second, I didn't even recognize him. The swagger was gone. The fake bravado melted down into a sweaty, twitchy mess. "Please," he said, voice cracking. "You don't understand what they're saying about us. Mom's sick. We could lose everything. We need you." I looked him dead in the eyes. For the first time in my life, I let him really see me. Not the sister desperate for approval, not the background character in the Todd show, just me. Solid, unmoving, untouchable. "I know exactly what you need," I said quietly. "And it's not me." I stepped around him without another word. I could feel the eyes of my coworkers burning into my back as I walked away. I didn't care. Let him explain himself. Let him wallow. Let them all realize the golden boy's shine was just fool's gold after all. The final cut came a week later. Mom sent one last email, long, rambling, desperate, telling me how she forgave me. Telling me she prayed every night that I would come back to my senses. Telling me how much she missed her daughter. There was a line buried near the end that stuck with me, though. "We always loved you. We just needed you to be strong for everyone. Strong for everyone. Not strong for me. Not love for who I was. Only for what I could endure without breaking. Only for how quietly I could bleed." I didn't reply. I didn't even save the message. I just deleted it and went back to my life, the one I built myself. The life where I didn't have to sit silently at the kitchen table while my brother gave speeches. The life where I didn't have to explain, defend, or diminish myself to fit into a family that never really wanted me whole. They collapsed under the weight of their own lies, their own greed, their own arrogance. And I didn't lift a finger to stop it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about hurting them back. It's about showing them in the clearest, coldest way possible, I didn't need you. You needed me. And now you're on your own. After the final message, everything went quiet. No more calls. No more surprise visits. No more ghostly texts dragging at my chest like heavy chains. It was like someone had finally turned off the static I didn't even realize I'd been living under. I didn't celebrate exactly. It wasn't fireworks and champagne. It was quieter than that. More sacred. It was sleeping through the night without waking up in a cold sweat, wondering if I was a bad daughter. It was walking into my apartment and feeling safe in my own skin. It was buying fresh flowers for myself on a Tuesday just because I wanted to, and putting them in the center of my kitchen table, the one where no one shouted over me, no one rolled their eyes when I spoke, no one compared me to someone shinier, louder, easier to love. It was starting to dream again. It took months for the guilt residue to wear off. There were nights I sat on my tiny balcony, legs tucked under me, staring at the city lights, and asked myself the same question over and over. Was I heartless? Was I wrong to walk away? But the answer always came back the same. No, I wasn't heartless. I had a heart so big, I spent my entire life trying to pour it into people who carved holes in it just to watch it leak. Walking away wasn't cruelty. It was the first real act of love I ever showed myself. Meanwhile, life had a funny way of blooming once I stopped watering dead things. I got promoted, twice. I moved into a better apartment, a sunlit little one-bedroom with hardwood floors, and an ancient, charming radiator that clanged like a ghost was politely knocking. I started painting again, badly, messily, gloriously. I found a group of friends who became more family than my blood ever was. We hosted Friendsgiving dinners that turned into laughter-drenched chaos. We had wine-stained game nights where nobody kept score. We celebrated tiny, stupid things like surviving Monday or finally unclogging the kitchen sink. No silent competitions. No quiet wars fought with backhanded compliments. Just belonging. Real, messy, beautiful belonging. And then because life has a twisted sense of humor, Todd came back, or tried to. It was about a year after everything exploded. I was leading a hiring panel at my company, flipping through resumes when my blood ran cold. There it was, his name. His sloppy, bloated LinkedIn profile attached to a desperate, badly written cover letter, begging for a job. Claiming he had project management experience, he didn't. Claiming he was passionate about team leadership, he couldn't even lead himself to pay a parking ticket on time. I almost threw the folder across the room, not from anger, from sheer disbelief at the audacity. But then I did what they never did for me. I paused. I considered carefully. I chose kindness not for him, but for myself. I scheduled an interview, face to face. He walked in looking like a deflated balloon version of the boy who used to stand on chairs giving speeches at family parties. And when he saw me sitting there at the head of the conference table, he froze, eyes wide, face draining color. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I leaned back in my chair, totally calm. "Good to see you, Todd," I said, voice perfectly even. I watched him sweat through the most awkward 15 minutes of his life. He tried to charm me. He tried to act like we were still kids, like nothing had ever happened, like he wasn't sitting across from the woman he helped drive out of her own family. And when he was done babbling, I smiled. A real smile, the kind that knows its own worth. "Thank you for your time," I said, standing up. "We'll be in touch." He stood too quickly, knocking over his chair. Mumbled something about being really excited for the opportunity. I waited until he left the building. Then I stamped his application with a giant red declined. No explanations. No revenge fantasies. No public humiliation. Just a door quietly, firmly closed in his face. The same way they had closed every door in mine all those years ago. Only difference, I didn't slam it. I didn't scream. I didn't ask why they didn't want me. I simply chose myself. And for once, nobody got a vote in that decision but me. Sometimes, late at night, I think about how they must talk about me now. How mom probably sits in her too quiet house, surrounded by bills and broken dreams, telling herself stories where I'm the villain who ruined everything. How Todd probably still wonders when I'll get over it and come running back to fix his mess. Let them wonder. Let them write whatever fairy tales they need to survive the ruins they built themselves. I don't need to correct them. I don't need to defend myself. I'm too busy living. Too busy laughing until my ribs hurt. Too busy painting terrible landscapes. Too busy holding the hands of the people who stayed, who showed up, who loved me without asking me to set myself on fire for their comfort. Too busy building a life where I am not the afterthought, the footnote, the background noise. I am the headline now. I am the whole goddamn story. And if that makes me heartless, fine. For once, I put my heart first, and it's the best thing I ever did. Story 2. As a gift for our anniversary, my wife insisted on cheating. I permanently left. Original article. I'm still in shock that I'm typing this. 32 men. Our 5th wedding anniversary was scheduled to be 2 weeks ago. Rather, I'm assembling what remains of my life in a motel room. I met Rachel, 31F, in college. The wild, passionate pair wasn't us. More like lovers who were best buddies, stable and cozy, all with just enough zing to keep things fresh. That was my initial idea anyhow. We were eating supper together at home the night before our anniversary. In order to surprise her with a weekend getaway to a mountain resort sealed in an envelope, I prepared her favorite spaghetti and opened a good bottle of wine that I had been putting away for months. She swirled her drink and added, "I'll give her the following morning. What I want for our anniversary has been on my mind." I grinned. "Yes, I may already have something planned." She bent over. "I would prefer to have sex with someone else. Only once." I assumed she was kidding. Even laughed. Her expression was grave, nevertheless. "You're serious," I said. "No. See, I've been considering it. All we've ever done is be together. And I just once, I'd like to experience it." I set down my fork. "As a gift for our anniversary, would you want to cheat on me?" She said, as if it were the most sensible thing in the world. If you know about it, it's not cheating. One night, one stressful experience. After then, everything resumed as usual. How? I inquired. Someone you know. She paused. This coworker. You've been talking, Mark, and we've been talking. The thought of us sleeping together makes my stomach turn. Not quite. However, chemistry exists. I've told him straight out that I'm married. It was improved by that. I moved my plate out of the way. Already? Well, I wouldn't do it in secret. I'm asking for that reason. I sat there attempting to comprehend my marriage of 5 years. And she wishes to celebrate this. It's a lot, I know. I drew away as she reached for my hand. However, I've read of couples that do this. It can strengthen bonds between people. While you go sleep with this person, do you want me to stay at home? If you wanted to, you could do the same thing. She extended an offer. As if she were being giving. Find a companion for the evening. I simply gazed at her. I don't want it at all. Just consider it, she added. It's only sexual relations. It has no significance. And when I woke up, I would return home to you. I need to breathe. I spent an hour strolling around the neighborhood. My thoughts are racing. After I returned, on the couch she waited. I've considered it, I said, and I am unable to accomplish it. If you require that, then perhaps our desires are different. Her expression was one of disappointment. You're going overboard. It's only once. Rather than cheating behind your back, I'm coming to you first. That should count for something, doesn't it? The issue is that you want to do it at all. Therefore, the answer is no, she inquired. No. She let out a loud sigh. All right. However, I believe you're exercising control. It's my body. That night, I slept in the guest room and stared at the ceiling till the sun came up. In the morning, while she was taking a shower, I knew what I needed to do. I packed my essentials in 2 suitcases in silence. I left the anniversary envelope on the bed after taking it. The resort reservation and a message stating that the gift was yours were found inside. Choose anyone you wish to go with. After packing my bags and calling a buddy, I collapsed on his couch. Switch off my phone for the day. I had 47 missed calls when I eventually turned it back home the next morning. Not from Rachel, but rather from her lawyer brother, Kevin. Plus, a dozen texts threatening to take me for everything and accuse me of desertion, stating that I had been spending time with my former partner, attempting to be cool, no right to just leave. 2 weeks have passed since then. Right now, I'm lodging at an extended stay motel. By stepping out and telling all of our friends that I'm controlling for not allowing her to explore her sexuality, Rachel has gone nuclear, accusing me of emotionally abusing her. In the meantime, she has tagged this marked person in 3 different postings and changed her relationship status to "it's complicated." I've now spoken with my own attorney. It turns out that your husband won't allow you to cheat, therefore you can't claim desertion after 24 hours. It's going to become ugly though. One update. After a week. This week has seen a lot of events. Kevin, Rachel's brother, stormed into our office at work and demanded to talk me out of it. Before leaving that evening, my team leader had to threaten security. Rachel texted, "You're acting absurdly. Come home, please, so we can discuss this like grown-ups." I didn't answer. A common acquaintance sent me screenshots the next day. Everyone has been hearing it from Rachel. After having a sudden collapse, I left her with all the expenses. Total nonsense. With the exception of one shared household account, to which I continue to contribute, our finances are distinct. The escalation followed. When I arrived home from work, Rachel was seated in the hotel lobby. She yelled, loud enough for the front desk to hear, "You can't just ghost your wife. I won't abandon you. You and I are parting ways as a gift for your anniversary after you requested to sleep with another man." I agreed to speak in the hotel restaurant against my better judgment. A huge error. Mark was merely an illustration. I didn't want him specifically, she said. All I wanted was to have an encounter with the person you named. Someone with whom you've been conversing. She let out a sigh. Look, I've been discussing this with my therapist. How long have you been seeing a therapist? For several months. Instead of repressing desires, she says, it's healthy to acknowledge them. When I brought up cheating, she rolled her eyes. Don't call it cheating. It's morally wrong to monogamy. Me? which, following 5 years of monogamous marriage, you suddenly threw at me. People change, she said. 5 years ago, I was a different person. She obviously began to cry at that point, and not in a quiet way. Public sobs that are loud. People were looking at each other. How come you're so icy? In between sobs, she asked. I am your spouse. It felt like that, so I just sat there and watched the performance. If you leave now, don't bother returning. As I walked away, she yelled. Kevin said the following day that I had caused Rachel a great deal of emotional distress and proposed a settlement in which I would cover the cost of 6 months of her therapy as well as emotional damages. After that, things became strange. Rachel's parents said over the phone. Rachel told them I've been emotionally distant for months and had rejected all her attempts to save our marriage. Her mom actually said, we know about the affair you had last year, but we believe in forgiveness. What affair? I couldn't speak. I've never cheated on Rachel. Not once ever. Mrs. Davis, I have no idea what you're talking about. Rachel showed us the messages from your encounter with that girl from the conference. I've never even been to a conference without Rachel. My lawyer says, we need to move quickly with the divorce filing and get ahead of her claims. I've started documenting everything and requested my location data to prove I've never been anywhere near this imaginary conference. Update 2 weeks later, I went back to our apartment to pick up more of my stuff. When I opened the door, I found half our furniture gone. She'd left a note just taking what's mine. A plumber as I was taking pictures. Mark walked in with a dolly, clearly there to take more stuff. He said, looking uncomfortable. Rachel said no one would be here. I bet she did. I replied, but this is still legally my residence too, and you need to leave. He had the audacity to say, Rachel said you abandoned the place. So technically, leave now or I call the cops for breaking and entering. He left, but not before saying, she told me you guys were already separated when we started talking. Just so you know, the next bombshell came from Rachel's best friend, Jenna. We met for coffee, and what she told me flipped everything upside down. Rachel has been seeing Mark for at least 3 months. She said she told me you two had an open marriage agreement. 3 months. She even showed me texts from you supposedly agreeing to it. Jenna continued, but the text seemed weird. Not like how you talk, but I questioned her. She became defensive. Turns out Rachel had been telling different stories to different people. To some, I was controlling. To others, I was unfaithful to her work friends. We had an open marriage. All lies. Jenna showed me screenshots of Rachel's conversations with mutual friends, where Rachel had been planning her exit strategy, figuring out what she could take, how to frame me as the bad guy. Armed with this info, my lawyer filed for divorce, citing adultery with evidence provided by Jenna. Rachel showed up at my parents' house during Sunday dinner and put on a tearful performance about how worried she was about my mental state. My mom called me in a panic. Took me an hour to explain what was actually happening. The latest development, Rachel's now claiming we had a verbal agreement to open our marriage, and my sudden refusal constitutes emotional abuse. Her brother has been contacting my friends, asking for me evidence of my controlling behavior. One friend sent Kevin screenshots of Rachel's Instagram stories, all featuring her and Mark looking cozy with captions like sometimes the right person comes at the wrong time. #no regrets. Kevin's response? That doesn't prove anything, they're just friends. Then my lawyer received a settlement offer from Kevin. They want the apartment, half my savings, including my pre-marriage investments and alimony, because Rachel sacrificed employment prospects to support my career. Rachel is a marketing manager who makes only $10,000 less than I do. There were no sacrificed opportunities. My lawyer developed a counter-settlement. Rachel receives what she brought into the marriage. I got what I brought. We split shared assets $5,050, and she acknowledges to the affair in writing to prevent a fault-based divorce in public record. Her parents phoned again. Apparently, Rachel eventually disclosed to them she'd been dating Mark before our breakup. They apologized for trusting her falsehoods. The last update. 1 month later. It's been precisely 1 month since Rachel requested for that anniversary gift, and I suppose this will be my final update. Rachel and Kevin eventually reacted to our counteroffer. After my lawyer indicated we were prepared to subpoena Rachel's phone records and bring Marking for a deposition. Suddenly they were sensible. We came to an agreement. Assets obtained during a marriage are divided 50/50ths. No alimony. My pre-marriage investments are intact. The flat belongs to Rachel. My automobile is mine. Each of us manages our own debt, the best part. As part of the settlement, Rachel had to sign a paper admitting to having an affair. Kevin vigorously contested this provision, but my attorney persisted. 2 days following the signing, Rachel is texting, "Are you happy now? Because of your ego, you have damaged my reputation." I didn't answer. The social consequences comes next. Rachel and Mark's fantasy came crashing down. Mutual pals claim that he ended things last week. It seems that he wasn't interested in a committed relationship and became alarmed when Rachel mentioned the possibility of living together. Since her most recent ambiguous postings on toxic guys and understanding your value, Rachel has been going on a social media rage. The cosmos will sometimes take someone out of your life as a favor, advancing in level. Add a hashtag to the new chapter. The chapter's misspelling just makes it more embarrassing. It has been awkward at work. Rachel had been telling people that I had serious anger management problems, so my manager drew me aside to see how I was doing. Fortunately, everybody who has worked with me understands how ridiculous it is. I bought new furnishings, started a new life, and moved into my new home. I had supper with her folks last night. Her father stated, "She wasn't brought up this way by us." Then, according to her mother, Rachel had a history of cheating in past relationships. Before her mother acknowledged it, she struggled with commitment. We believed that marriage had helped her grow past that. Before I proposed, would it be convenient to know? But whatever. Within 2 months, the divorce will be formalized. According to my lawyer, it's among the cleanest breaks she's ever seen. In spite of the initial drama, the rock climbing gym has me as a member. We reconnected with old pals and even resumed a casual dating relationship. Nothing major. While unpacking the vacation reservation last week, I discovered that the original anniversary present envelope had expired unopened. I didn't regret throwing it out. I still get angry sometimes, but it's not because Rachel wanted to sleep with someone else. Rather, it's because of the complex falsehoods she made up, the way she tried to deceive me, and the way she turned friends against me. The blatant arrogance of believing she was entitled to her affair and to me. Mostly, though, I'm thankful. Thank you. Before we had children, she was authentic. I'm glad I learned when I didn't. Years later, I'm glad I managed to keep my dignity when I left. Sometimes the simplest solution to chaos is the best one. Assemble your belongings. Make a note and begin anew. Story 3. My wife and her buddies had me trapped. They chuckled and abandoned me in the middle of nowhere after their innocent joke. I only made one phone call and didn't become upset. When I dismissed 34 men the following morning, they were all fired. I've always thought of myself as a rather laid-back individual. When things go wrong, I'm not the kind to stir things up or look for retribution. However, there are moments in life when you simply must maintain your ground. My 32-year-old wife, Eliza, has maintained a close friendship with her college pals throughout the years. Vanessa, a 33-year-old HR manager at a prominent software business, is one example. 32-year-old marketing executive, narrative, a financial advisor on page 34, and Tessa, a 31-year-old corporate salesperson. These women travel together every year, have weekly wine sessions, and generally think of themselves as inseparable. Being the odd one out has always been me. I'm essentially invisible whenever we all get together, and they have these inside jokes from their time in college. They've made it quite obvious that I'm just Eliza's husband to them, despite my attempts to establish a connection. In any case, I have buddies of my own. Last weekend, the event took place at what was meant to be a couple's getaway. For a cabin weekend, all of the ladies brought their spouses. We booked a house in the middle of the woods, with sporadic mobile connection, about 2 hours out from the city. However, the main road about a mile away from the property itself had good signal. Eliza was happy, so I consented, even though I wasn't pleased about spending the weekend with folks who hardly even notice my existence. Tessa and her husband Derek, Meredith and her boyfriend Jared, Vanessa and her husband Greg, Eliza and I, and Paige and her husband Kyle were the couples. Things went well on Friday night. We played games, drank beverages, and barbecued. While the males spoke about business and sports, the women reminisced about their time in college. Vanessa proposed that we all participate in the intricate scavenger hunt she had organized on Saturday afternoon. We were divided into groups. I was with Meredith's boyfriend, Jared, and Tessa's husband, Derek. Compared to the others, our hint took us farther into the forest. After around 45 minutes, Derek received a text message informing him that there was an issue at the cabin and that we needed to return right away. There was no one, no automobiles, nothing. Only a message on the door. You got it. I hope you guys are able to return to society. XOXO, everything was taken by the boys and gals. They turned off and concealed our phones, which were in the cabin. Everything, including our vehicle keys and wallets. The door to the cabin was locked. Only the clothing we were wearing were with us. Derek began to panic. I was silently fuming as Jared nervously laughed while stating the typical Meredith prank. With the exception of a single location on a hill about a quarter-mile distant, where you might occasionally receive one bar, the cabin was in a cellular dead zone. The good news is that Derek managed to keep his phone in his pocket during the treasure quest. We were the only ones that did. After almost an hour of hiking to the hill, Derek eventually managed to get enough signal strength to make one call. I didn't call Eliza, but he allowed me to use his phone. I gave my friend Nathan, an IT security professional, a call. In order to be prepared to assist, I briefly summarized the circumstances and inquired if he would want to know Eliza's newest whereabouts after I returned to society. By this time, Derek was having trouble breathing. His inhaler was back in the cabin, although he did explain that he had minor asthma. We looked all throughout the cabin for more than an hour, but we couldn't find a spare key. The sun was beginning to drop, and Derek's breathing was becoming worse. We decided to walk in search of assistance. We walked 7 kilometers to the closest petrol station, which took over 3 hours. It was dark at that point. I was thirsty. Derek's asthma was much worse, and my feet were blistered. We received some kindness from a kind stranger. A stranger assisted us. A trip to the closest town, where we rested at a budget hotel. Derek's breathing improved somewhat when the front desk receptionist offered him some over-the-counter allergy medication, but his condition remained poor. I call Eliza on Sunday and am using the hotel's lobby phone. What did she say? It was only a joke, darling. Our expectation was that you would all figure it out sooner. A spare key was put beneath the swing on the back porch. You checked there, didn't you? Whoa. And wait till you see the film of you people screaming out that we acquired from the hidden camera. Now, we're all at brunch. In a few hours, we'll come grab you all. Without answering, I hung up. Then something clicked. To capture our responses, they had installed cameras throughout the cabin. I requested permission from the motel clerk to check my email on the computer at the front desk. He concurred, and I noticed that all of the group members had already begun sharing footage from the covert cameras on social media. In order to upload everything last night while we were walking for assistance, they had drove back to the main road, where they had cell service. We came up with a strategy when I contacted Nathan again from the hotel lobby phone. I made the decision to hold off on taking any more action until Monday. I wanted to see how they would behave when they picked us up and what else they would publish. Things began to happen by Monday morning. Let's just say that it's not the best idea to capture your funny prank on hidden cameras, share it on social media, and distribute the footage to your coworkers. I'll provide updates as this develops. When a victim of yours realizes that enough is enough, on Monday night, provide an update. I want to start by saying thank you for all of the comment support. This didn't blow out the way I thought it would. Allow me to elaborate on Sunday and this morning. When I ended Eliza's call, she called the hotel repeatedly. I didn't answer. Derek was still suffering from a flare-up of his asthma. If his breathing didn't get better by morning, he was thinking about seeing urgent care. Jared said that we should simply laugh it off. But when I showed him that they had posted videos of us on social media, appearing bewildered and frantic, I could see that even he was furious. A few of Meredith's colleagues had previously made remarks along the lines of "lol savage," and these guys can't take a joke. Around 3 p.m., Eliza and Vanessa finally arrived. Before they noticed our faces in Derek's state, they were grinning. Derek called Tessa right away to confront her about his asthma attack. Jared simply climbed inside the car without a word. To put it mildly, the travel back was stressful. Eliza attempted to hide it when we arrived home. "Sweetheart, it was only an innocent joke. We didn't anticipate that you would need to trek so far. Throughout, the extra key was under the swing. Do you realize Derek could have had a serious medical emergency out there? I asked her, glancing at her. Do you find it amusing to leave someone stranded without money, a phone, medicine, or a means of transportation? She became defensive. You're being so theatrical, my God. The men found it amusing. I asked the men. Kyle, however, found it amusing. He was the one who proposed installing the cameras and concealing the phones. Paige's husband, Kyle, is an investment banker and has always been the group's alpha male. Are you implying that Kyle came up with the concept for the joke? I inquired in a neutral tone of voice. Yeah, but it was amusing to all of us. Greg assisted with the camera setup. Even Vanessa's employer thought the video was amazing when she uploaded it to her work chat. I knew I had more than enough at that point. I fell silent, told her I needed time to myself, and went to the guest room to sleep. Her buddies were sending her jokes, and she was messaging me memes on how to handle them. I implemented my strategy on Sunday night this morning. I had already sent Nathan images of their shared movies and social media postings via email. He assisted me in properly organizing and documenting everything. I emailed Vanessa's company's human resources department early on Monday. The director of marketing at Meredith's company, the vice president of sales at Tessa's company, and the regional manager at the financial firm where Paige works. On Sunday night, once we returned to civilization, I spent hours recording everything. I didn't require any specialized tech or hacking knowledge. Their public Facebook postings and Instagram stories included the footage. In the posts that showed us stranded, they had really tagged their coworkers and places of employment. Vanessa wrote plainly as they planned everything in their group conversation, which they uploaded. Let us ensure that Derek is not in possession of his inhaler. When he panics, it will be more hilarious. We should do this to the new hires, Tessa and Paige suggested in a video while giggling, as a way to foster teamwork. I didn't tell everyone at once. Enough. They also uploaded the hidden camera footage of us frantically looking for assistance. They planned to take Derek off his medicine, according to the screenshots of their group conversation. The character-building social media posts in which they boasted about abandoning us. They chuckled on the TikTok about how unpleasant it was outside with the bugs and no water. I'm not spiteful enough to demand their termination. All I wanted was for their employers to see their true selves. But professionalism counts, and acts have repercussions. Vanessa texted our group chat this morning. What the fuck is going on? HR recently summoned me to an urgent meeting. My employer then wants to meet me because of my behavior, which is inappropriate for a financial advisor. Is that unclear? What's happening? It's there. I recently received an email from my director regarding a frightening film that is going around. I'm going crazy. My customer, Tessa, just terminated our agreement and specifically pointed to my lack of empathy and judgment as the reason I require that commission. Angry, Eliza stormed inside the home during lunch. What did you do? They claimed that you included the videos we discuss in your business emails. They were confidential. I simply shrugged. I just sent their firms their own public social media posts, along with a brief explanation of the situation. In these videos, your friends have already labeled their places of employment. I just ensured that their managers were aware of the associations with their businesses. All afternoon long, she has been destroying my phone. It appears that Vanessa has been placed on leave while the inquiry is ongoing. Paige's client accounts have been deleted. Tessa lost her largest customer, and Meredith's staff is being moved. Kyle claimed it was a joke, dude, and called me a vengeful asshole. Intriguingly, Derek texted me privately. I ought to have defended myself. I appreciate you accomplishing what I was unable to. When I have more information, I'll update. Until Eliza stops tossing my clothing in the yard, I'm now residing at my brother's house. Wednesday is the second update. The past 48 hours have been crazy. I'll make an effort to keep this update concentrated on the significant advancements. First, to address the most often asked topic, Eliza and I are still legally married, but things aren't going well. She alternated between calling me a monster who destroyed her friend's life over a pointless disagreement, which ended with her being hospitalized, and pleading with me to make things right by phoning everyone and claiming that everything was a misunderstanding. She did this for the entirety of Monday night and Tuesday. I declined. There was no miscommunication here. They boasted about it, shared it, and documented it as a conscious act. There has been serious professional repercussions. Yesterday, the NSA was dismissed. She had already been on thin ice for fostering a hostile work atmosphere, it turns out. And the last straw was this. She has been calling me all kinds of derogatory names on my phone. Paige has been placed on probation and demoted. Since her clients have been moved, she will essentially receive no incentive this year. Compared to the others, Meredith's firm is more concerned with its image. She has had to do compassion training, and she hasn't worked with clients for at least 6 months. After the first client spoke, Tessa lost 3 more. Her entire income comes from commission-based sales. She is therefore in a panic, overpaying her mortgage. Kyle continues to act haughtily, sending me menacing texts about how I've created a lifelong enemy. Anyway, man, here, you're not precisely the master criminal. Derek's action was the most unexpected. He asked if we could get coffee together when he phoned me yesterday. He informed me that he ultimately made the decision to divorce Tessa following his asthma episode, and saw how contemptuous everyone was of it. It seems that she has a habit of making fun of him for amusement, and this prank was simply the most recent. He expressed gratitude to me for unintentionally providing him with the necessary wake-up call. Jared texted Meredith yesterday to end their relationship. She yelled that I had poisoned him against her when she arrived at our place while I was getting additional clothing. Last night, Eliza finally quit standing up for her pals. Vanessa had just informed her that I was always the issue and that Eliza ought to have chosen someone who could take a joke, she said when she contacted me in tears. It seems that even Eliza is too much of a liability for Vanessa now that she is unemployed. Is it possible for us to speak tonight? Eliza inquired. I concurred, but I'm not hopeful. She took part in leaving me alone in the woods, shared recordings of it, laughed about it, and then justified everyone's behavior until they betrayed her. A healthy marriage isn't precisely built on that. Nobody losing their jobs or relationships is anything I'm celebrating. I didn't intend to do that. For the first time in their lives, I wanted them to face the repercussions. These are 30-something individuals who found it amusing to leave folks in the woods without food or a way to go home. It isn't a harmless joke. It's harsh and hazardous. After I speak with Eliza tonight, I'll provide an update. The last update. After a week, I believe this will be my last update on the matter, as it has been a week since everything happened. As scheduled, Eliza and I had supper together last Wednesday. Instead of being the angry person who had been destroying my phone for days, she was quiet. She began by claiming that her pals had betrayed her and shown their true selves. Once things became difficult, they had apparently begun accusing her of marrying such a vengeful jerk and implying that she must have known my true nature in their group chat, which I never participated in. I asked her a straightforward question. Would you still believe it was a harmless joke if Derek had passed away from his asthma attack outside? She was unable to respond. She finally acknowledged that she had fallen victim to the group mindset. I sometimes become someone I don't recognize when I'm with them, she added. I didn't consider the repercussions. All I wanted to do was join in on the joke. I informed her that I wanted some time to consider whether our marriage could move past this. I understand, she responded, nodding. We decided on a 1-month trial separation. For the others, Vanessa has been looking for a job urgently, but she has already been rejected by 3 firms. Calm as a bitch, Paige's husband Kyle eventually had his revenge after looking through her references. After a client complained about his frat boy activities, his business conducted an internal inquiry and discovered some troubling emails. He is now on leave. Meredith, who was laughing at Derek's panic crisis only days before, is attempting to reinvent herself on LinkedIn as an expert in empathy. Derek and Tessa are formally divorcing one another. He claims that for the first time in years, he feels as like he can breathe and is staying with his brother. I didn't mean to pun. Jared truly apologized to me after reaching out. He said that he had always been uneasy about the dynamics of the group but had never had the courage to speak out till we had a beer yesterday. I've been considering my part in all of this. Was I too severe? Perhaps I might find a less nuclear alternative. Maybe. However, after being left in the woods and seeing Derek's fight for air as they all laughed, I was treated as though I were invisible for years. I just broke something. The fact that none of them, not even Eliza, exhibited genuine regret at first is what irritates me the most. They didn't realize their actions were bad. They only felt regret when they had to deal with the fallout. For now, I'm staying with my brother. Eliza began her treatment last Friday, And she texts every day, occasionally with updates. She occasionally just says she misses me. I'm not yet prepared to return. Similar to a mirror is trust. You can glue it back together if it breaks, but the fissures will always be visible. I'm not sure if Eliza and I will be able to get along. I kind of wish we could. But there's more. She laughed while I was lost in the woods, and I wonder if I'll ever be able to look at her without remembering that. I suppose the pranks at other people's expense are the lesson to be learned from this. Aren't even pranks. All they are is cruelty masquerading as comedy. And when the roles are reversed, sometimes those who distribute it are unable to handle it. Thank you for your support and for reading. I sincerely hope that I won't ever need to publish an update of this nature.